We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to the 420 edition of my programming. This is the Doors of Divination, only because there was a holdover from Wednesday's show, and there was so much activity going on in the call queue that I decided to open up the first hour of today's show to be able to do readings for people, because there seemed to be a lot of people that wanted me to do readings for them. Now, if I don't have a lot of readings here in the first hour, I'm just going to kind of go with my alternate schedule of programming, which is kind of getting into 420 a little bit and talking about the symbolism of 420, and also a number of events that have occurred over the years on 419 and 420. And when I unroll some of these events, you'll be mildly amazed at the confluence of events that takes place right around this time. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at, what this day theoretically means, how it's used propulsively through what my friend Ellis C. Taylor would call a mega ritual, and what we might expect today as a result of 420. Now, again, what I'll show you is that 420 isn't just, it's not just located and sort of hermetically sealed with the day 420. 419 also plays a very significant role. It's a 24-hour period, 419, 420, to some extent 421, but it's really the 419, 420 window, because 419, the energy is waxing, and 421, the energy is waning. And when I begin to connect some of these dots, you'll begin to see how innately powerful this day is and has been chosen by the obsessively compulsive meta-ritualists that use numbers and symbols as energy to forward an agenda. And you could say that the agenda is Luciferian. You could say it's Kabbalistic. You could say that it is Pharisaian. You could put any label you want on it. At the end of the day, really what it's about subjugation, and it's about the domination of the psyche in the collective soul of humanity. It's pretty simple. But there's a lot of interesting energy that's associated with this day. Not all of it is negative. I'm going to take a little bit of a different turn here, and I'm not going to say that this is an evil day. I think it's interesting that we have Friday the 13th and 420 back-to-back Fridays. Just an interesting notice. It is not necessarily an evil day. There is energy associated with this day. One of the first, and what I'm not going to do is I'm going to maybe go in and out of this until people decide to call up and maybe have a reading done, which is doubtful because we live in a world of instant gratification. We do. It's plain and simple. And it's getting more and more instant as the days progress. So when I said on Wednesday that I would do readings for people on Friday, I didn't really expect that to happen and people to show up. But I did it because I'm doing this because to the best of my ability, I'm a man of my word. And what are we without our words? What are we? We're nothing. We're zero. So here I am. I'm living up to my responsibility, my accountability, my commitment to you, whoever you were at that time. And if you're not here, that's fine. I'll just continue to do what I do. Okay? But there's really interesting energy associated with this day, or these 2 days, 419 and 420. 419 was the start of the American Revolution. It was on 419. I'll read you the stat sheet here. It was in 1775. The war begins with an American victory in Concord during the battles of Lexington and Concord. The following day, on 420, Washington starts the siege of Boston, which is literally a year-long siege that starves the English out of Boston. So here we have an event that is linked to, theoretically, one of the most important exercises in the proclamation and affirmation of freedom. The American Revolutionary War happens on 419. Yesterday was the anniversary of that. Today's the anniversary of the siege of Boston. Is that bad? I don't necessarily think so. It is what it is, but it's not necessarily bad. There are other things that are much more negative associated with 419 and 420. We'll get into those a little bit as the show evolves. Australia on 419 was seen by Captain Cook for the very first time. So Western eyes laid eyes on Australia on 419. And Marie Antoinette married Louis XVI on 419. I'm not sure if that's a positive thing or a negative thing. I have no position on that, none whatsoever. We're going to get into this a little bit today. Of course, everybody knows today is Adolf Hitler's birthday, and it is probably the highest highlight or the lowest highlight, depending upon how you view Adolf Hitler. You know, the Hitler thing is interesting. It is really interesting. In the conspiracy world, he's one of the more controversial figures. Even outside of the conspiracy world, he's controversial. But inside the conspiracy world, he's very controversial. And I'll tell you why. There are people inside the conspiracy world that view Hitler in two different ways. There's one view of Hitler, and the one view of Hitler is that he was set up by the Zionist Jews of Germany. And basically, the Zionist Jews were running the Third Reich. And it was a controlled opposition front, just like theoretically the Bolshevik Revolution was a controlled opposition front. Both happened at the same time, both different models of social democracy or lack thereof, depending upon how you view it. That's one view of Hitler. Hitler was programmed, Hitler was duped, Hitler was mind controlled, and it was all done by very sophisticated Zionist Jews who were running the Third Reich in the Second World War. That is one view of Hitler, that Hitler is a patsy. This is a conspiracy realm. I'm not talking about history realm. History realm is Hitler was an Aryan, and he wanted to slaughter the Jewish people, and you know, it's never forget. Always remember from that point forward, Holocaust, bad dude, bad time. That is the company line for history. The second, or the other alternative view of Hitler in the conspiracy world is that Hitler was actually not a patsy, but what he was trying to do was he was trying to stare down and vanquish Jewish supremacy, which had infiltrated all levels of government and all levels of industry in England, in the United States, and even in Russia. And that he was not a patsy at all, and this was an attempt to defeat the Hyksos Jewish Kabbalist industries that were being led at that time, theoretically, by Meyer Amschel Rothschild. And there are people inside the conspiracy world that would tell you that the wrong side won the war. Now, when you get somebody like George Bush's dad, Prescott Bush, you know, running guns and feeding money to Hitler in the Third Reich through Brown Behrman, and then he begins to get cloudy. It's like, well, what's this all about, right? So I'm just laying out to you these different scenarios of who Hitler was. There are three scenarios. There's the traditional historical scenario. There's conspiracy theory A, which is he was a dupe and a patsy and mind controlled. And then there's conspiracy theory B, which was he wasn't, and he was actually fighting the good fights to take down these evil forces. Now, I don't really have a position on the two conspiracy theories because, quite frankly, I don't really know enough. But I do have a position on the historical perspective. I think the historical perspective that we're given is wrong because I think the historical perspective on history is wrong. And one of the things that leads me to believe that it is wrong, or not even lead, I know that it's wrong, all you have to do is go in and read the letters of Patton. You know, Patton was the guy that took over Germany after the war. He was basically the first, you wouldn't want to call him president, he was like the manager of Germany after the war. They put Patton in charge of Germany after the war. And what Patton saw after the war startled him, alarmed him. Because what he saw was this infusion of Eastern European Jews from the Soviet Union that were being brought in by the Russians before everything had been, you know, the wall had been built and the city had been, Berlin had been carved up and divided. He saw what was going on, and he was startled and horrified by what was happening. And he was startled and horrified by what was happening to the German people after the war. And so he was going to make a big stink out of this and was writing his senator, and really turned Patton's perception of the war on a dime. And what happened to Patton? He died. The brake lines were cut in his car, his Jeep. He died. He was offed, totally offed. So my piece around the end of the war and how it's been told by the victors, I'm not down with it. Just like I'm not down with the way most of history has been portrayed. The other two possibilities, quite frankly, what happens when we get into conspiracy theory is that there are so many details that we get wrapped around. And it gets very difficult at times. Now, there are times where you can, untangle the truth, but it's challenging. It can be really challenging. So I'm putting those two out there, those two conspiratorial views of Hitler. Do your research and figure out which one you think fits. Or if they don't fit at all, figure that out for yourself. So today is his birthday. Obviously, we know that. I was on YouTube. No, I was on Yahoo just before the show. And I found something that was really interesting. Last week, I believe it was last week, if I'm not mistaken, I was talking about Blade Runner. And I was talking about loving the android, right? I mean, if you were here last week, you heard that show. Well, guess what is one of the headlines today on Yahoo? Let me just drop this into the chat room. Here we go. There we go. Check this out. You got to read. This is for the chat room. Sex robots, 4 you can buy today. And look at the image. Who is it? It is Pris from Blade Runner, who is played by Daryl Hannah, who's also a mermaid, who's also the one-eyed assassin in Kill Bill. 4 sex. By the way, Daryl Hannah comes from a very wealthy Chicago family. 4 sex robots you can buy today. Robots can replace humans for a variety of jobs, but prostitution seems like a profession that will stay human only. That may not be the case, however, according to a new study. Researchers envision a future in which robots take the place of traditional sex workers in Amsterdam clubs, providing a safe, clean place for people to engage their carnal desires. I don't know about you, but having sex with a robot does not sound that appealing to me. I've had sex with humans that were very robotic, and it was very unappealing. So I don't know. I'm not feeling the android sex thing. In the year 2050, an increase in sex trafficking and an outbreak of incurable sexually transmitted diseases draws people towards robots instead of humans, according to Ian Yeoman, paper co-author and associate professor of management at Victoria Management School in New Zealand. He foresees hundreds of robots of every ethnicity roaming clubs in Amsterdam, providing all-inclusive service for $10,000. $10,000. Amsterdam's red light district will all be about android prostitutes who are clean of sexual transmitted infections, not smuggled in from Eastern Europe and forced into slavery. Yeoman wrote in the paper, the city council will have direct control over android sex workers, controlling prices, hours of operations, and sexual services. The new sex industry will be a boon for the city as it will draw in more and more tourists, but eliminate many of the problems that come with prostitution, such as drug use and violence, according to the paper. Well, not only that, but how about the decimation of the human psyche and the destruction of the human heart? Are you kidding me? This guy's insane. If you cannot wait until 25, there are options available today. though not as sophisticated as the robots Yeoman predicts. Here are 4 sex robots that are currently for sale. Shall we look at them together? Let's just look at them together. Let's see here. Come on, slideshow. Let's go. All right, so this is Roxy. Let's go back. Here we go. This is Roxy. Billed as the world's first sex robot girlfriend, Roxy the robot was revealed in 2010 by New Jersey-based True Companion LLC and offers not just sex, but the girlfriend experience. Roxy, and that's Roxy with 3 X's, connects to a laptop and can respond with a variety of commands when it senses that it's being touched. So we've had lap dances. How about laptop dances? At a demonstration at the Adult Entertainment Expo, the creator, engineer Douglas Hines grasped Roxy's hand, which elicited the response, "I love holding hands with you," from the robot. Sex only goes so far, then you won't be able to talk to the person, Hines told Associated Press. It's really about making a companion. Roxy and her male companion, Rocky, are available for $3,000 each from True Companion's website. Here's the unnamed robot. The unnamed robot is built by China's Love Sex company and is available for approximately $5,000. The 5-foot 5-inch tall robot has a metal skeleton with silicone gel skin and muscles and has movable body parts, some of which vibrate. The company targets the robots at Chinese executives too busy to meet real women. Customers can choose the face of their robots, and it can be programmed to recognize the user's face and hold conversations with him or her in a variety of languages. Susie Sexbot. Susie Sexbot, available between $6,000 and $11,000, depending on the features, responds to touch and voice, and has several robotic motions it can make. It is powered by rechargeable batteries and can be operated by a wireless remote control. Susie and her male counterpart, Harry Hard Drive, can also be rented for parties for $300 an hour. And last but not least, Honey Doll. Of course, you know the Japanese would have to get in on this. The Japanese Honey Doll is available for approximately $7,000, and it comes in a variety of body types and colors. The doll responds to touch and can play different sounds from an MP3 player embedded in her head. Depending upon where she is touched, users can also upload their own sounds to the MP3 player. Wow. Sex robots, are they a threat to prostitutes? A new study says yes. And all of these sex robot articles, by the way, are coming on the heels of the Secret Service prostitute scandal, Putagate, as I like to call it, down in Colombia. So what would happen? Let's think about this. What would happen if a Secret Service agent decided not to pay an android prostitute? That could be tricky. That could be very tricky. And what about android rights? You know, because you know at some point somebody will unionize the androids. They will. It's just human nature, or maybe inhuman nature. And that the androids will have their own unions, androids will have their own set of rights associated with them. You think I'm nuts? I'm not. This is coming. This is coming. And we are being psychologically massaged for this to take place in our culture. And you can see it. It's been going on for a long time. It's been going on since the 1950s and the 1960s. It goes back even further when you look at the animation of Pinocchio. When I say animation, I'm not talking about just the cartoon animation, but animating the wooden boy, the mechanical boy, by Geppettophile. So this has been in the psyche, it's been massaged for quite a while. I saw a cartoon about a year ago called Astro Boy, and I used to watch the Astro Boy cartoon when I was a kid, the Japanese version. So it was one of the first animes, Astro Boy, and it's the robotic version of Pinocchio, is what it is. They basically took Pinocchio and turned him into a robot and put little, jets on his feet, and he could go out and he could fight evil and yearn to be a real boy. And Astro Boy, the movie, is out now creepy. It's one of the creepiest movies I've ever seen. And I watched it with my kid, and I'm sorry I watched it with my kid, because there's a scene there's this one scene where it's completely done up so that something, I forget the exact details, but something happens to Astro Boy that is emotional. And I watched my kid shed tears over Astro Boy. It was really hard to watch. Thinking, wow, he's feeling emotion for a robot boy. What does this mean? What does this mean for him and his perception of robots and his generation and what they're being indoctrinated into? And it's not just robots. What we're seeing literally androids become more human and humans becoming more robotic. And this is really the hellacious irony of the whole thing. Because humans are becoming much more robotic. Let's see if there's anybody on the line. There's a caller. Hey, you're on the air with Robert. Hello, how are you?
Hello, yes, I'm doing all right.
Hi, what's your name?
My name's Eric.
Hey, Eric. Are you calling in for the readings, or you just want to chime in and talk about what I'm talking about?
Well, for the readings, but actually the subject you're talking about actually interests me as well, because I know where you're coming from on that. And, in Blade Runner, I think the name they used for the androids was Replicant.
Yes.
I totally know where you're coming from on that issue with androids and trying to get people to sympathize with inanimate objects and so forth. But, I was originally having the idea to call in because I was trying to get in on Wednesday.
Yeah,
you had
good.
a packed show.
Good.
And,
well, let's honor that. You're here for that. By the way, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep with Philip K. Dick, the humans, it's really dystopian, and it's the human consciousness that triumphs in his short story. In the movie, Ridley Scott and the scriptwriters for Blade Runner totally flipped that around. And the whole replicant's consciousness has a much more kind of moralistic view by Dick. He sees it as being entirely negative and dehumanizing. And Blade Runner, it's actually exalted. So there you go. There's the interpretation for that. Hey, I don't have many people on the line here, so why don't we go ahead and do a natal chart for you? How does that sound?
That sounds great. Actually, I've been told that I have a Grand Cross on my natal chart. And,
well, let's find out. Let's get into it and find out. Let me erase this chart, which is the chart of the United States, which I can get anytime, anywhere. Okay, so I'll put you in here. And go ahead and give me your date.
Okay, September 15th, 1975.
Okay.
6:08 a.m.
And where did that take place?
Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Okay. see what we got here. Fredericksburg. Let's see. I'm almost there. There you go. All right. And let's see. Yes, you do have a Grand Cross in your chart. You also have a really powerful, well, it's not quite the mystic rectangle, but you've got this square pattern in your chart as well. Super complex chart. You've got a lot going on there. You've got a yod between Mercury and Uranus to Jupiter and Chiron. You do have the cross, and yeah, dude, it's you got a lot happening. So, what would you like to look at? Where do you want to go with this? How can I help you?
Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure what to make of it because I'm far from an astrology buff. But, you know, the last several months I've been trying to find new direction in my life because I went through a breakup with a girlfriend. And oddly enough, her birthday was September 14th, but it was
interesting.
73. You know, through various other types of readings, I've been told that I'm kind of going through a spiritual awakening right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just wonder what this chart kind of gives, what you sense from the chart.
Yeah, so let's look at your sun sign and then the relationship between the sun sign, your sun sign, and the sun sign of the person you just broke up with. It's an interesting dynamic because your sun is 21 degrees Virgo, and it's in your first house. And the first house is the house of identity and projecting the personality into the world. So when you have your sun in the first house, you can have people that have a first house sun leave a very strong impression on other people. They can walk into a room and are noticed, even if they don't say anything or they don't draw attention to themselves. It's just the presence of the sun, the solar presence of the sun in the first house. When you bond with somebody who would be probably at 20 degrees or 21 degrees just like you, which means their sun would conjunct your sun, there is a great deal of what we would call entanglement that would take place between the two identities. It's interesting because it's in the first house, so you would really identify with this person in a very big way. So it would not be an insignificant breakup for you. It would be a very significant breakup because not only would you be disconnecting from somebody that you had a connection with, but somebody that you had really closely identified with your own identity. And people also would have identified the two of you together. And I don't know what the circumstances were in terms of your social life, but it might have been one of those things where, you know, separating and untangling friends through your social network might have been difficult as well because of the couple identity that you would have shared together. So this would have been a very powerful breakup because in a lot of ways you'd be divesting, you know, really important and significant aspects of yourself and your own identity. So it's kind of like dying, really, on some level. And I think probably the same could be said for her, but I don't know what her rising sign would be. You know, I don't know where this would show up in her chart, but for you, certainly it's in the realm of your identity. Very, very important, and very important transition as well. Now, Mars, as we know, is moving direct now, and shortly it will be conjunct your sun. And I think that this is quite significant because Mars retreated and went back into your 12th house over its retrograde run over the last couple of months.
I don't know if this matters, but like the breakup actually happened back at the end of October. Yeah, it's been felt like I've been dying through that process for several months.
Yeah, well, it's incredibly significant because of the entanglement. The astrological entanglement that would have been involved in the Sun-Sun conjunction in the first house. It's not. I mean, this is not an insignificant breakup. I mean, you're really, you know, hacking away at parts of your being with this breakup, even though it happened in October. Now, Mars is moving forward now, and with the retreat into the 12th house, Mars would have you go. The 12th house is like I liken the 12th house to be like the temple or the sanctuary. Sometimes I use an analogy for the 12th house as being oceanic, but it's really delving into the place of mystery. And so Mars has retreated back into the temple or back into the sort of the oceanic mystery of consciousness or being for you. So there would have been a real retreat back into a kind of a safer place for you over like the last month or so, last 2 months. And that would have been anything from, limiting your social contacts to trying to get in touch with sort of the spiritual implications.
That's pretty much spot on, because I basically the last couple of months have been doing energy clearing work. Well, I had energy clearing done, and then I've had energy sessions done to try to help me recover from this.
That's what I tell you, you're so in alignment with your chart and your transits that all you have to do is just continue to follow that energy, because Mars is going to move forward and it's going to conjunct your natal sun, which is significant. Okay, let's look at this in terms of the ephemeris and when that's going to take place. I'm going to have to go back here. So we're going to look at Mars at 21 degrees. And we're going to give you a date. Okay, so let's go Mars 21 degrees. It's soon. It's really soon. It's the 5th of May, Cinco de Mayo. That's when Mars. No, I'm sorry. That's a different day. Hold on. Let me go forward. See, it's a little bit further out than that. That was Jupiter. Mars 21 degrees, 16th of June. Mark that day in your calendar. 16th of June. I would bet a significant amount of money that I don't have that you on that day would begin to experience what I would call a resurrection of your personality or resurrection of the self, because that's when Mars conjuncts your sun. That's when you will have a renewed sense of purpose with your identity. And my sense is that the tough parts that you've been working on in terms of healing through breaking up with this person and clearing the energy out, you're going to be past a really critical point with this. And you're going to begin to feel like yourself again, but you're going to begin to feel like yourself in a way that is bigger than the self that you were before you met this person. Does that make sense to you?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a growing process that was intended by the universe by me putting me through this, and it's actually even a more complicated situation, because on top of the breakup, I had a very close friend betray me and betray my trust that I put in him about discussing the situation with that breakup.
Right.
And I recently found that out. But I've also been told that supposedly I'll be having possibly another relationship coming in toward the end of May, early June.
Well, that corresponds with the Mars, what I would call the resurrection of Mars from your 12th house, because at the end of May, Mars crosses over at 13 degrees from your 12th house over your ascendant and into your first house. So the energy for you is going to be, you're going to feel a lot safer and a lot more secure and a lot more together than you have been over the last few months. And I think you just have to trust your process around this. And when you get the Mars-Sun conjunction, it's going to be like you're going to have what I would call a new set of marching papers from that point forward. Let's look at a few other things going on in your chart so we can kind of get a handle on this in terms of what else is happening. Let's see. Relationship-wise, probably this whole thing probably started really in earnest when Saturn was closer to your natal Pluto, which is at 8 degrees Libra. Certainly, we've had Pluto squaring your natal Pluto in the sign of Libra, and that's been happening really for the last year or so. And the Pluto-Pluto square, super challenging, especially because, you've got that second house, which is all Libra. Second house is relationship, right? And when you, for second house is relationship for you because Libra's on the second house cusp for you. When you have a planet like Saturn move through your second house and it ticks off Pluto, when I say tick off means it hits Pluto and then it hits Mercury, what happens is that it's going to challenge your sense of safety, your security. The second house is all about the root chakra. And for you to be successful in a relationship, it's a double-edged sword. You need to be really okay and secure in yourself. I mean, we all need that theoretically in our lives, but it's really important for you because of where Pluto and Mercury are in the second house with Libra there. So what this relationship, or the breakup of this relationship and the betrayal has done is it's getting you more secure, allowing you to feel more secure in that root chakra, in that foundational self. And this is all, this is really powerful medicine for you, because what's going to happen is that Saturn is going to move out of Libra and it's going to hit Uranus in October. You're going to have a Saturn-Uranus conjunction, which is super intense. I mean, Saturn is all about, endurance and time and legacy and patience. And Uranus is none of that. Uranus is let's make it happen now. Uranus is about change. It's about revolution. It's about electricity. And so part of your last, I think, test around this is you're going to have a confluence of events that's going to force you to make really powerful, fundamental, deep, and long-lasting changes that you're going to have to make quickly, and you're going to have to keep your cool about. Here's how I would say what would take place. I would bet that there's going to be a very strong chance that as Mars moves forward, and you get more confident and you get this conjunction with your sun, and that you're feeling more of yourself again, but in a bigger way, a more expanded way, that this person that you broke up with is going to come back into your life. And they're going to say, I'm sorry, I apologize, please, take me back. You're going to get that. This is
from her.
And Saturn, and you're going to have to make some fast decisions.
You think she's going to say that to me, or that I would say that to her?
No, her to you. It won't be you to her, because what Mars is going to do, theoretically, if you've done your work, and it sounds like you have, you're going to be breaking these cords. And the more that you break the cords, the freer you're going to get. The more energy is available, the more of your own personal mainframe, to use a kind of a technological term, you're going to have access to. And when that happens, the people that you've been corded to, they sense it. The cords have been broken. Oh, he broke the cords. Why is that? And you don't even have to send an email or make a tweet or post on Facebook. All this stuff is really subtle and very etheric, and they'll feel it. And the reason they'll feel it is because you're moving on, and now there's more of you. And what will happen is this person will sense it. Maybe you'll see them. Maybe they'll see you. Oh, wow, you look great. Oh, wow, you look different. And you're really the same person. It's just that you're more of that person than you were before. Now, the challenge is going to be, what are you going to do with that? And that's going to be the Saturn-Uranus conjunction. That's my sense. And my advice to you would be to move forward.
And well, I know I have to move forward, because the information I have about the person who broke up with me is that she's been allowing demons to work through her.
Well, okay, you've got your insight into that. I'm just telling you that there's a moment that will occur where she is going to come back and she will test you. She will test where you are. She will test how much you've committed to this evolutionary arc in your own growth. and that's the Saturn-Uranus. Now, Saturn's going to be on your Uranus for a while, basically about half of a year. And you're going to have an accelerated opportunity to grow. And at that point in time, because it's in Scorpio, you need to really hold fast, I believe, to your sexual energy. Like, I don't think it would be wise for you during that 6-month period from October to April to really divest yourself of your sexual energy. Hold on to that. Wait for Saturn to move into your 3rd house. That's just my take on that, because Uranus is part of that yod, and you've got Chiron and you've got Jupiter in your 8th house. So you can tap into your sexual energy at a really potent level, but I think you've got a level of mastery, and you've got a test that borders on an initiation with Saturn conjuncting your natal Uranus. Once it moves off of that, then my sense is that you can move ahead. You can move forward with.
Can you elaborate by what you mean by the importance of the sexual energy?
Well, you've got Jupiter and Chiron conjunct in your 8th house. So Jupiter is in Aries, right? And we look to Jupiter to where we can expand, and then we look at Chiron, and we look at Chiron as to, where we need to go through sort of a gate in order to experience the completeness of our individuality. Because for me, Chiron is our shadow self. Chiron is the place that we shut down due to enculturation and what I would call cultural shame, institutional shame, whether it's the church, whether it's society, whether it's families, whether it's universities, whether it's corporations. We're all forced to shut down at some point. To me, Chiron is the representation of that. And you've got it in Aries, which is, and I talked about this on the show on Wednesday, Chiron in Aries is all about how you manifest your will, how you manifest your leadership, how you manifest your masculine principle, because Aries is the masculine principle. And in Chiron, or with Chiron, it can be tricky because there is an overcompensation or an undercompensation. There is a desire to manifest it in ways that are at times either inappropriate or awkward because you're feeling it out. You're trying to understand, how you can exert your will on the world. And Virgos have a challenging time with will. And you're not only are you a Virgo sun, but you're a Virgo rising. And Virgos are the way that Virgo aspects or manifests will is through service. And there is kind of an inherent piece of waiting with Virgo. It's like very different than Aries. Virgo kind of has to wait on the universe, or to wait on the will of God, or to wait on the other in order to activate its own sense of will. It's very unlike Aries. Aries points its finger and says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to accomplish this. Whereas Virgo is not about that. Virgo has to wait for the instruction. What am I here for? Virgo is representative of the 6th house. It's about purpose. It's waiting on the will of God in some ways because it's opposed Pisces. It's waiting for that spiritual direction to come through. So what am I supposed to do? Why am I here? These are all 6th house lessons and episodes. So that's what Virgo is taxed with doing. Virgo is here to line up with the messages of the soul which come through the 12th house or Pisces. And for you, it's doubly it's doubly programmed into your chart because that's you've got the Virgo rising and the Virgo sun. And when we look at Chiron, and we look at Jupiter in your chart, they're in Aries, but they're in the 8th house, which is really, again, adds another layer of complexity to an already complex chart. What is the 8th house? The 8th house is the subconscious. It's the psyche. You know, it is these zones that act on us versus us acting on them. So for you, the real key is the 2nd house. Why? Because those are the planets that are the most tangible for you to access the 8th house. The 8th house, by the way, is sex and death and procreation. And you've got this really big planet, Jupiter, tied together with Chiron in that house. So it's an important house for you. You need to understand how sexuality works. You need to understand, you know, how sexuality works in terms of your own personal will. You know, one of the things that I cautioned you about with Saturn conjuncting your Uranus is giving your will away through sexuality. You don't want to do that. For you, it's important, really important, because when we look at the opposition or the back end of that yod, you've got Mercury in Libra. You must have a balanced interchange between you and the partner that you're with. Anything that's imbalanced will lead to you giving away your personal power, which happens in the sexual realm because it's in the 8th house. You must have reciprocity and consensual relating with the person that you're with. You have to have that. If you don't, even if it's mildly imbalanced, you have a great tendency to give your power away, especially through the sexual act.
Yeah, I think that pretty much relates a lot to the relationship that ended with me.
Yep, so you've got to hold on to that. That's precious, really precious. So there are times where you will step away to reorganize and recalibrate your own sexual energy. And this is one of those times. So when Saturn moves onto your Uranus, you will be tested. And the test will be, will you give away your will? Will you give away the connection between your will and sex? And I would say, and if there's anything that you take away from this reading, it would be, again, starting in October for 6 months after that, you have to hold steady to the gains that you've made over the last 6 months. Okay? It's really important. After that, you'll be able to enter back into the realm of sexual relating in a way that's much more balanced than ever before. And I'm going to give this to you, and then I'm going to send you back out into the virtual realm and the real realm. You've got Jupiter up in your 9th house, and you're getting ready to have Jupiter conjunct your midheaven. And that happens this year, and it's going to be on your midheaven for most of the year. And then after that, Jupiter moves into the 10th house. You have got to focus on your career. Whatever your career is, whatever it is that you do, you've got to focus on that because you have great potential coming to you with that Jupiter midheaven conjunction. And you don't want to miss that by, what I would call, sexually or emotionally backsliding. You don't want to do that.
What is the timing of that conjunction?
Well, that conjunction really starts in June because that's when Jupiter makes its shift, but it's there for the entire year. So from June until December, you want to hang out with that energy, and it's important because one of the things that you've got going on again in this very complex chart crosses all over the place is the Mars-Neptune opposition, and that's in your chart. The Mars-Neptune opposition is there's a tendency with Mars-Neptune to be diluted at times with ideology or diluted with connection or information. And here we have Jupiter's coming in, and you're going to have a Jupiter-Neptune opposition, but you're also going to have here's the deal with that, right? The Neptune opposition with Mars, especially in the 3rd house, really has to do with your most intimate circle. Like, you've got to choose your friends really wisely. You've got to choose the information that you take in from your own inner circle in a really selective fashion. Like, you can't buy into, like, this betrayal thing with your friend, right, and this relationship. That is a total, sort of Neptune third house experience. And what you've got to do, really, theoretically, is to kind of ameliorate that or to offset that is to focus on your career and to focus on really building out versus getting sucked into what I would call the negative aspect of that dipole. So the more that you focus on your career, the more that you focus on your gifts and skills and energies, really building out the opposite side of that opposition, the stronger you're going to get. Jupiter moves onto your midheaven in really conjunction-wise in June, and then it shifts over into your 10th house in 2013, conjuncting your Mars. And that's really where, you've got about a great year and a half to 2 year run with Jupiter in your 10th house, because your 10th house is also ruled by Cancer. So again, part of what you want to do is focus away from what I would call the entanglement of your limited inner circle and build outwards towards the world, because that's where your greatest level of achievement can take place. And don't let people dissuade you, because I think another thing or another piece around this is that you could have really considerable progress, and you could have people in your inner circle try to bring you back down to a level of relating that was comfortable for them, putting you in a box and defining you in a way that allows them to see themselves in a limited fashion. And you want to move away from that. And I think part of what you're going to be going through is really kind of determining really who your friends are, and how they've supported you. Because there's this term that people use, haters, which I don't like to use, but that would be the culturally, tangible term. You want to move away from the haters. The more that you focus on your career and your ability to manifest your gifts in the world, which you're going to have an opportunity to do with Jupiter, the more people around you are going to want to bring you down and drag you back and say, hey, do you want to smoke a joint? Hey, do you want to do a line? Hey, do you want to go out and have a few drinks? And because that's the comfortable place for them, not for you. You want to move ahead, and you've got a great opportunity with Jupiter to do that.
I got to say that what you've been saying is spot on, because I've been considering changes in my career a lot lately, and also taking a closer assessment of who my friends are.
Well, good. I mean, you are right in alignment with your chart. I mean, everything that we've talked about, you've been already sort of, stalking and on the hunt with. So I would suggest that you just continue to do that, continue to live with these dynamics and these questions, and begin to, really bring the energy home, because that's what based on your chart and based on these transits, it's all about bringing this stuff home and really claiming the most sacred aspects of your own individual personality. And when we do that, we don't give our energy away. We're listening to our higher calling and our higher nature, and then we allow these really divine energies to come through and manifest in incredible ways, and show us that we're bigger than our limitations. We're bigger than our negative relationships that we've set up, because really all these people they're just aspects of you. They're aspects of your nature that are unclaimed or unexamined, or unconsciously manifested. And as we become more conscious and we hold these things sacred to ourselves, we begin to realize how we've given so much away. And now we can take that energy and do wonderful things, be creative and have new relationships that reflect who we are, relationships that honor who we are. And that's when life gets really interesting. And how many of us are willing to accept that? We've been so traumatized in our lives that it's hard for people to begin to realize, hey, I could have this. I could have people that love me and respect me and recognize me. Well, the only way that we can have that is if we do that for ourselves. And part of how we do that is by disconnecting, unplugging, clearing out, and then preparing the ground for something new. And that's where you are.
That's exactly right. I mean, everything you've said here is totally spot on. And I want to thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for being patient, and thanks for chiming back in and circling back. It shows a level of commitment in your own process, I got to tell you, and I'm glad I'm here for you, okay?
I very much appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, take good care.
You too.
All right, well, good. I'm glad somebody remembered and showed up. And I'm glad I showed up. All right, it seems like we have another call here. Let's do that. Hi, you're on the air with Robert. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
This is Ann.
Hey, long time.
How are you? I've been listening. I just can't talk because I'm at work most of the time. But I've been listening. So then today I got a chance because I'm out early. So I figured, let me listen to you when you're doing your divination. So what's up with me? Anything you want to tell me? I'll tell you my birth date.
Let's see. I know. Let's see. What is? Hold on. It's is it 64?
No.
56?
I am 2752 at 8:58 p.m.
Okay. 2752.
It's Aquarius, Libra rising by about 2 or 3 degrees.
2752.
But of course, many people think I have Virgo characteristics, unfortunately.
Oh, let's not speak poorly of Virgos. Let's love the Virgo. Let's love the inner Virgo in all of us.
I think the Mars in Virgo is helping me clean up a lot of my physical messes at home.
I think Mars in Virgo, and speaking quite selfishly as a Virgo, has been a great tonic. You know,
yes.
I'm going to own my Virgo. I've got 29 degrees Virgo. Part of what I've been going through my life over the last 6 months has been owning my Virgo. And I've never liked being a Virgo, especially with 3 planets of Libra and my Mars being at the anaretic degree. I want to move on.
Okay.
What is that noise, Ann?
Huh?
What was that noise?
Oh, I have a piece of paper. I was writing down what you were saying.
Okay, so anyway, let's see. What degree is your moon?
Cancer, I don't know, like about 17 maybe?
That sounds about right. So let's see what we got going on here. Well, I got to say that probably the biggest piece is this Pluto opposition with your Uranus.
Yeah. Huh?
And also the Pluto-Chiron conjunction.
Okay.
That's significant. I mean, Pluto-Uranus.
That's today, no? Today?
Yeah, Pluto-Uranus is really, it's like, okay, if we look at like wake-up calls from the universe or alarm clocks going off for the universe, and Pluto is one of those planets that triggers that. I mean, you've got like a double alarm clock going off here. Uranus-Pluto opposition it's one of those things where it's like, okay, how much time do I have left here? And it's like, what do I want to do with my time?
Yes.
And it's like, you've got to get selfish with your time.
That's what I'm doing. Yes, that's what I'm doing.
And when Pluto conjuncts your Chiron, it's really about, okay, how much more do I really need to know about myself? How much more do I really need to understand or figure out? How much, why don't I just fucking do it?
Yes, that's how I feel, yes.
So, Pluto on your Chiron is, you're part of that Chironic generation that are in, or theoretically, seats of power. like your generation right now is would be, sitting on boards, in local governments, in federal governments, at the higher ranks of the military.
Uh-huh.
And it's because of your age. I mean, theoretically, you would be in those positions now.
If I was a male.
Even if you weren't a male. I mean, when Hillary Clinton's older than you, but maybe somebody like I don't know, Susan Rice or Valerie Jarrett, or these would be Chiron and Capricorn people.
Uh-huh.
So you would be part of that, and
okay.
It would be, what do you do with the energy? What do you do with the power? How does it impact where we are right now? Because I really think that that Chiron and Capricorn subgeneration has an extremely large role to play for where we are with this Pluto and Capricorn energy. So you have a social responsibility, Ann.
Okay.
So what are you going to do with that? That's the big question. And you may not think that, by the way.
Right.
But that's not true.
Okay.
So the big questions would be, how much time do I have left? How selfish do I want to be with my time? And if I care anything about the world around me, what can I do to change it?
Okay. Well, I do that anyway. To tell you the truth, the thing that I'm the best at is, you're similar to that. I'm like an information junkie.
Right.
I'm like a walking, talking internet, before the internet. Like Radar, from the TV show, MASH.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know how to get things done, like the backdoor way and all that. But how I transmute that to helping people with trying to figure out to make a certain amount of money on it, and the other part of it is helping people but not overstepping my bounds. Some people just don't want information. They just want to get it done fast. They don't want to do the research. I'm into research, I guess is what I'll say.
Well, you've got that Jupiter in Aries, right? And Pluto is getting ready to square. It's squaring it now, but the big heavy square, exact square, comes in 2013 when it squares it directly. Jupiter in Aries is about the individual expression of will. So part of this is also not necessarily about research, but it's about making things happen. And Jupiter and Pluto is going to force you to make things happen. It's also going to conjunct your Venus, and that's Venus in Capricorn, 2013. At that point, it's about forming strategic alliances through relationship, and not going it alone.
Okay.
So Pluto's a big player in your chart.
I just figured out something recently. I still to this day don't get along with either of my sisters, and I finally looked again at one of their charts, and she's a Leo, born in 1953. She has 5 planets in Leo, including Pluto and Mars.
So it's the oppositions, right, with your son, right?
Oh my God! Even now, even this many years later, it's like there's always a power struggle, and people with all that sibling rivalry, I say it goes beyond sibling rivalry. It's like, oh my God.
Well, let's step back just one more layer. You've also got Neptune right on your true node, right?
Right.
So that's that's also sort of the mystic overlay. So while Capricorn is trying to get you to focus on the chronos, the chronological aspect of your own evolutionary arc and your own time here on this planet in a body, trying to get you to figure out how to calibrate your will and what your legacy is going to be, what you're going to leave in the world. Well, guess what? Neptune is saying, hey, you've got to pay attention to these really powerful spiritual energies that can give you a great deal of guidance along those lines. So meditation, spiritual practice, water rituals, these are all really, really important things for you.
What do you mean? What do you mean by water ritual?
Well, water rituals can be anything as basic as laying in your bathtub and lighting some candles, and hanging out and allowing the medium of water to connect with you at a higher level. I mean, I think bathtubs are really powerful places to be. I'm serious. I've got a buddy who
I hate that. I absolutely despise that.
Well, I have a buddy who, and I was going to bring this up, who does this thing with showers. If you hate baths,
oh yeah, I could do it with a shower. Yeah.
Take a selfish 15-minute shower. I've got a friend who does this, and he gets high. He smokes pot, and then he blocks off all the light in his bathroom. He showers in the dark, and he takes a shower, and he enters into this vortex.
Sensory deprived. There you go. Yeah.
So another water ritual would be going to some place like, you're on the East Coast, right?
Yes.
Go hang out at Niagara Falls. That would be a water ritual of immense proportion. Go to the Canadian side, get the slickers, and just allow yourself to bathe in the ionic charge of Niagara Falls on the Canadian side.
Sounds like a good idea.
That would be a water ritual, especially if you don't like baths. The ultimate shower, Niagara Falls.
What's the big waterfall in California? Any?
We've got Bernie Falls, which is in Yosemite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
So real quick, how's your daughter doing?
She's doing good. We're trying to get her flight. She is the ultimate manifester. Which is interesting. You said Niagara Falls. She interviewed in January in Canada for a job teaching in Japan, and coming back, they had an accident in Niagara Falls on the ice. It was like a Friday the 13th. And then again, this past Friday the 13th, her friend was supposed to be coming down from Canada to see her, and they stopped him at the border. He's a Virgo.
Interesting.
But they seem to have a lot of Friday the 13th. But he has a ton of Scorpio in his chart. So I don't know. He's all fire.
There's a lot of Scorpio energy related to Friday the 13th, that's for sure.
Really?
Yeah. Well, 13th, of course, is theoretically the number of death, in the major arcana, which is, it's a Scorpio thing.
Okay.
So, anyway, well, good to hear you, Ann. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Yeah, well, she's Aries. She has a lot of Aries, so that's probably why she's moving. So, and then she's leaving right after the Gemini thing. Jupiter going into Gemini. She has Venus and something else in Gemini. So it all makes sense,
Well,
I think it's dangerous there, I think, but I'm not going to be able to stop her.
In Japan?
Yeah.
Which part of Japan is she going to?
She's going to Kansai province for like Osaka, so she's at least 200 some miles away from it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's tell her. If I were you, I would. She
has friends there. That's another part of the problem. But go ahead.
I would have her drink bentonite or French green clay on a consistent basis, and get her set up with. The problem with buying produce in that area is that it's radioactive, and if you could get her some freeze dried like cilantro. I'm going to post this thing on my website. Gate 7, who hangs out in the chat room a lot, sent me this really great recipe for a cilantro pesto, which is great for removing toxicity, metal toxicity. But the French green clay would be really good for her, or bentonite would be good for her. She can order that via the internet and, try to get her to flush that stuff out on as much as she can.
She won't even take vitamins, so I don't know. We'll see.
All right, well, she's the master of her own destiny, and, you'll have to let her go with that.
That's the way it is. She got Mars and Moon almost, conjunct, just about, in Aries, so 10th house.
Yeah.
So she's going there, She's going there.
Okay,
it's
so
interesting.
do you want me to put you back on mute, or do you want to just
take
off?
Yes, you can put me on mute, and I'll listen. Thank you.
All right, Angie. Take good care.
Thank you.
All right, that's our friend Ann. Haven't talked to her in a while. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break. I'm going to play some music. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to come back on the other side, and we're going to look at 420 and look at some of the really outrageous events that have happened as a result of 420. So I'm going to play, let's see. How about, what do I want to play? Let's play sound vibrations. This is sound vibrations. I'll be back in 5 minutes and 4 seconds, and we'll talk about 420 on the backside.
One of nature's greatest wonders is the ability of the human ear to distinguish among the millions of sounds around us. Listen. You will hear later how these characteristics are determined by the frequency, intensity, and form of sound waves in the air. Recognize those sounds? Sure. It's these vibrations which your brain interprets as sound.
That was sound vibrations from yours truly, Diamond Matrix. I just went and had half of an avocado with sea salt and pre-Fukushima kelp on it. Not the kelp is from Fukushima, but you can't have any seaweed or tea from Japan right now. And sushi, forget it. Just forget it. It breaks my heart. I love sushi. And there's this great Japanese market by my house. And they roll their own sushi, and you can get little packages of it for about $4.99. And it's just it used to be the best snack. And I'd go there, I'd have that stuff, I'd get some seaweed salad, and it breaks my heart. I walk by that stuff now. It's like, are you kidding me? It's just like it sucks, to be honest with you. Really sucks. Anyway, today is 420, and I promised that we would talk about the 420ness of the day. And a lot of interesting things have happened on 420. Let me just talk about locally what's happened here today. Oh, there's a bridge. It's called the San Mateo Bridge, and it connects the East Bay from the peninsula. It's a pretty significant bridge, and it's a bridge I've never liked. First of all, it's a really long bridge. It's the longest bridge in the Bay Area, and the potential for something going wrong in that bridge is pretty significant because of the length of the bridge. It's not a particularly nice-looking bridge. There's no suspensions. The part of the bay that it's in is kind of boring. So if you're looking out, all you're seeing is water on both sides. It's just not that great of a bridge on any level. And today, going west from the East Bay to the peninsula, a truck stalled, and a fuel truck slammed into it, and it began to leak fuel all over the bridge and into the bay. Well, guess what happened as a result of that? There was another accident behind them. So now we're talking two really significant accidents going in one direction. So they can't get emergency services vehicles to the accident coming from east to west. So they bring them from west to east. Fire trucks, ambulance. You know the story, right? Well, guess what? Cars slam into the fire truck and a CHP car coming in the other direction. They called in the Coast Guard. They called in helicopters. I mean, it is really an accident of epic proportion happening here in this area today. So the day is young, and we are holding extremely positive thoughts for the rest of this day. Speaking of positive thoughts, here's what I want everybody to do. We're going to do a little exercise here in positive thinking. Okay, let's just try this for a second. Group collective positive thinking. The reason I'm bringing this up is twofold. Because A, it's 420. It's a new moon, by the way, as well. We want to take advantage of these wonderful, symbolic, and phenomenal energies that are available to us. Why not? Okay, let's play the hand that's dealt to us. So let's roll with it. There's an astrologer by the name of Jamie Partridge, aka Jamie Darkstar, who has a really popular website called Darkstar Astrology that he does with his wife Marina, and Jamie was diagnosed with cancer, and he just shared with the astrological community, which I'm really a very peripheral member of, by the way, and the Facebook community, that he's cured of cancer. He's clear. And he believes that it has to do with the positive thought and the positive intention that people shared as a result of him going public with this. So I'm all for that, okay? So there is a member of the chat room and our radio show who's up for a job interview today, or the second round of a job interview today. You know what? I think what we're going to do, let's do this. Let's try to do something on Fridays. Let's start today with somebody that we honor and bring positive energy to every Friday. Let's call it the Good Friday or the Positive Friday ritual, or the Positive Friday moment. And let's do this every Friday with somebody. Let's just start today. Why not? It's a new moon. Let's plant the intention. Let's make this a positive part of the show. And we'll start with Gemini Sun today, because she's looking for a job. It's a second round of an interview, and apparently she likes the job. So let's just roll with this, shall we? It's a new moon. Let's all hold a positive intention for Gemini Sun to get this job, if it is in her highest good. Because you always want to surrender to the highest good. So if it is in her highest good, let us affirm and decree that Gemini Sun gets this job that they want because they like the job, they need the job would support them and other people in their life and in the community around them. At this point, the job becomes more than a job. It becomes a vocation, and it becomes the fulfillment of a spiritual need for Gemini Sun and the people around them. So let's hold that. Let's affirm and decree that, and let's send that out to the universe for that to happen. Let's do that. Let's just do it right now, okay? Bang. So be it. So be it. It is done. We're going to do this every Friday, and and if you are in the chat room, you're part of the show. This is what happens. You get moved to the top of the Friday wish list, the positive manifestation of Friday, Positive Friday. So there we go. Okay, let's talk about 420 a little bit. Let's look at some of the things that have happened on 419 and 420. We talked about, or at least I talked about at the beginning of the show, the Revolutionary War, which started on 419. Okay. What's really interesting is that the American Civil War also had its roots on 419. That's right. Yep. The Baltimore riot of 1861, which was a pro-secession mob in Baltimore, Maryland, attacked United States Army troops marching through the city. So in some ways, that was one of the first shots across the bow for the Civil War on 419. London established Belgium as a kingdom in 1839. Think about that. Belgium? Nope. You thought you were your own country? You're not. You're just London's bitch. Sorry. Nah, I guess you're your own country, but, you know, you can't really, I mean, you look at that and you got to go, okay, there's paperwork there. There's just paperwork. You know, there's charters and all kinds of stuff. You're just part of London. Sorry, Belgium. It's the way it goes. Let's see, what else do we have here? Did you know that April 19th is Bicycle Day? You know what Bicycle Day is? If 420 is Pot Day, Well, 419 is LSD Day because Bicycle Day is when Albert Hoffman took LSD and rode his bike around Switzerland. August 19th is Bicycle Day. Isn't that fascinating? You got Bicycle Day and you got Weed Day. 419, 420. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Let's see. What else happened on 419? Charles Manson was sentenced to death on 419 for conspiracy to commit the Tate LaBianca murders. I got to tell you, that the Charles Manson murders, or the Tate LaBianca murders for Charles Manson, I watched the documentary. Pretty mainstream documentary in some ways. A lot of details, though. I'm going to do a program on Charles Manson one of these days, and the Tate LaBianca murders. Absolutely, utterly fascinating. All right, here's where it gets really tangled. Okay? It's interesting, Captain Cook saw Australia for the first time in 1770, and then in 1984, Advance Australia Fair is proclaimed Australia's national anthem, and green and gold is the national color. So, April 19th is a big day for Australia, for all my Australian listeners. The FBI siege on the compound of the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord, also known as CSAL, took place in 1985. That was a precursor for what was going to happen later on. 1993, the 51-day siege of the Branch Davidian compound outside of Waco, Texas, ends when a fire breaks out. 81 people die. What happened in Waco to this day is one of the most egregious crimes that's ever happened in this country. Ever. We look back on the Clinton administration, which was in the seat of power at that time, and how they handled that with Janet Reno at the reins. And it's tragic. You had women and children literally burned to death in what might be one of the most incendiary and brutal rituals that's related to the April 19th, April 20th connection here. As a result of that, theoretically, in 1995, the Oklahoma City bombing took place. And the Alfred P. Murrah building, federal building, in Oklahoma City, where they, by the way, housed most of the documentation for what took place in Waco. Yep. Almost all the information was housed there. In 1999, the German Bundestag returns to Berlin. And it was the first parliamentary body to meet there since the Reichstag was dissolved in 1945. Of course you have to have it there on April 19th. Of course. It makes total sense. Total sense. And in 2005, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger was elected the 265th Pope on April 19th, 2005. So you're getting the feel for April 19th? It's pretty wild, huh? Oh, and by the way, The Simpsons premiered as a cartoon short on the Tracy Ullman Show on April 19th. Loaded. It's a loaded day, April 19th, in a very big way. April 19th will also mark the date of the death of Levon Helm, who passed away yesterday. And Levon Helm, the great singer and drummer for the band. You don't get much more American than Levon Helm, let me tell you. Just a really unique, fascinating, rootsy individual whose weathered and tortured voice, was just really poetically conveyed the American experience through the band. When you hear Levon Helm sing, you hear the ravages of the Civil War and everything else that unfolds from American history. It comes through the voice of Levon Helm. And he survived cancer, pretty brutal bout with cancer. He survived that. He actually wound up getting a Grammy last year and really brought his career and life back from the brinks of death. He had surgery on his throat. I mean, it's a really big deal for this guy, for Levon. And he passed away yesterday, and he's just a tremendous, tremendous force. The voice of the Reconstruction. It's Levon Helm. Greg Ham, who was the singer, he's a musician and songwriter, an actor. He was one of the founders of Men at Work. He passed away yesterday as well. So 419, huge day. Let's go to 420 and round out the 419, 420. Cycle here. Let's see. 420, we have Hitler's 50th birthday took place in 1939. Billie Holiday recorded Strange Fruit on the same day that Hitler turned 50. The United Nations basically begins on 420 because the League of Nations, which was the precursor to the United Nations, officially dissolved or died on 420 in 1946, and then essentially ceded all of its power to the United Nations on 420. The Bay of Pigs happened on 420 and failed. Huge piece for the Americans, and ultimately the subservience of America to the Soviet Union. It was a major fail for the United States. There was an enormous sense of betrayal that took place in the Kennedy administration, which ultimately fueled 2 years later, fueled his death. Flight 902, which is very interesting, Flight 902, it's a Korean airline flight 902, was shot down over Russia. That took place in 1978 on April 20th. What else happened? Let's see. We talked about the ATF raid at the Covenant, the Sword of the Arm. It's a 2-day raid. It took place on April 19th and April 20th. We have on 1999, 999, April 20th, 420, Columbine. Yep, Columbine. That took place on 420. And we could devote a whole show to Columbine. But I'm telling you these events to give you an understanding of what takes place. And then last year in 2010, this is where I really want to jump off. 2 years ago in 2010, Deepwater Horizon took place. The well that exploded, the Deepwater well, the Macondo well, exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. And as a result of which, the Gulf of Mexico has been just completely saturated with core exit. And now, finally, 2 years later, we're seeing the ravages of what's taken place and the absolute desecration of the Gulf of Mexico to the marine life is really, literally and figuratively coming to the surface, because we're seeing, the mutations. And Michael Edward, who has been a friend of the show for a while, was really so far out in front of this that he was almost like shouting into a void. But he was not only there on the ground near the Gulf and seeing the initial effects of the spraying of core exit, he was into the biology of core exit, where it came from, where it was developed, who the researchers were. I mean, Michael opened up a Pandora's box around this stuff that we're now seeing come to light. I mean, he's the guy that could theoretically say, I told you so. He was there. And we're seeing it now. The Gulf of Mexico is becoming a dead zone. It's becoming a dead zone. And, part of what Michael was talking about, and part of what I've been, starting to blog about, is that the whole plan here, theoretically, is to kill the Gulf of Mexico. It has been for a while. And as a result, create this enormous pool of black algae, and out of which there would be this new alternative fuel source. It's insane. It's totally insane. But killing the Gulf is part of that business model. And we're seeing it. We're seeing the Gulf die before our very eyes. And we've had 3 events now, or 2 events that have impacted us in a very big way. One has been the Gulf of Mexico. 2 is Fukushima. 3 might be happening today with Popocatépetl blowing his lid. Well, let's find out where that goes. That's happening today, by the way. The Mexican volcano, Mount Popocatépetl, has decided to go volcanic, going live. Apparently, and maybe Erica, aka Miss Flying Saucer, might have some information on this in the chat room. I think that there was a UFO spotted over Popocatépetl. I'm not completely sure. There's so much information out there that it's hard for me to follow everything. But I think that there was a UFO over Popocatépetl. If you're in the chat room, maybe Erica could post a link on that, and maybe see the connection between this UFO and this volcano. A lot of the UFOs are man-made. Some aren't. And maybe it's one of these UFOs that are man-made that can begin to, do the front-loading narrative of Project Bluebeam and the false alien invasion, which people have been talking about, by the way, over the course of the last 2 to 3 weeks, getting lots of chatter. So maybe that's one of those, potential false flag events. But we do know Popocatépetl is live and is spewing ash into the atmosphere. So let's just throw that into the old global cocktail. But these things generally happen in threes. So we've had one massive water event, which took place on 4/20/2010. Another massive water event, which took place on 3/11 in 2011. So I'm beginning to think that there'll be a third massive water event that will take place. And I'm going to guess that it will happen with a lake and something connected to a lake. Maybe Lake Michigan, because it's almost like an ocean. That might be the third event. But look for another massive water event to take place in 2012 to complete this cycle. So where would it be? If we go down to the Gulf of Mexico, we draw a line to Fukushima, a diagonal line. We draw a line straight across. Where would that be? It would be somewhere in Europe, actually, to be honest with you. Maybe the Thames. Maybe the Thames and the Olympics. Maybe. Because what we're seeing is a pattern. We're seeing this pattern where the waters are impacted. And as a result, they're killing us. You know, these events are killing us. Fukushima is killing people. It's killing people in Japan. And, it's impacting fetuses. The radiation's impacting fetuses. It's theoretically, it's being proven. I had a guest on a few months ago, and based on their data, that's what they were finding. And, maybe I'll have Michael back on, and we'll look at what's going on with the Gulf and some of the mortality rate around the Gulf. If you go to rents.com, there's a ton of information on Fukushima on the Gulf, since today is the anniversary of the well being blown. So it's a big day, this 420, this 419. A lot happens. So let's take the energy. Let's not leave the show on a down note, okay? Let's take the energy and let's bring it home, and let's use this energy positively. Today's Positive Friday. We're gonna have the Positive Friday moments every Friday from here on out. We're gonna take one person and we're gonna focus on that person, and we're going to affirm and decree something important and positive to manifest in their life for the highest good. We're taking this energy back. On this day, 420, we are reclaiming this energy. We're bringing something revolutionary and positive to every Friday from this Friday forward. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Okay. Well, let's make it so. And today is Gemini Sun. Next Friday, we'll do somebody else. We'll start with some chat room people. This is one of the benefits of hanging out in the chat room. We'll do Friday blessings and manifestations from this Friday forward. Okay, so let's do that. Let's take this energy, the positive energy, the life-affirming energy, the abundant energy that is ours, that is our divine right, and own it. Let us not focus. Let us put a seal on the negative energy of 420 that we have witnessed, and let us reclaim that energy for us in our intent this moment forward. Recasting the spell of 420 in a greater image than its ritualistic, captured, and embalmed sense. Okay? From this point forward. All right. It's going to be a warm weekend here in California. It's going to be in the 80s. I plan on being outside and having a good time and celebrating the return of the sun, which is really the new moon today and tomorrow. Get out, plant something, put your garden in, plant your intention. Affirm and decree that you are a human and having a spiritual experience in a human body. why you're here. Affirm and decree it, love it. Do something that celebrates it. Plant something. Eat a good meal. Make love. Say a prayer for another human. That's what we'll do. And with that, I urge you to use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. I've managed to talk for almost 2 hours with only 2 other people talking with me. Didn't think I could do it, but I did. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to play, let's see, do I have anything that I can play? Great Big Water. Let's do that. Great Big Water. This is for the people living on the Gulf. Great Big Water. Almas Desnuda. I'll see you guys on Monday for the Monday mashup. Love you all.
You know, I used to stump around and I'd wonder why, questioning the moon, the stars, the sky. And then I saw the truth, all this pain was just in my head. I thought I better start living, 'cause soon I just might be dead. And oh, a great big water flooded me. I became just another drop in the big gigantic sea. And through all this pain, confusion, I did sniff, and my soul felt lighter, so I thought I'd write this funky ass riff. The next step, oh well, I took it logically, was to share my thoughts, my life philosophy. But not all of the people wanted me to speak. They wanted the safety and the comfort of their negativity. And then I read the words of Mr. Gandhi. The change in the world you want to see. And so I closed my mouth and I tried to live the truth. And so it was a whole lot harder than preaching from a preacher's booth. Oh, a great big water flooded me. True, it might be drops, but we ripple through infinity. And if ever you should forget this and start the trip, just listen to this message while we drop our funky riff. Which